she didn't want anybody in there except for Joe, and they had Vander in there because they didn't want it to be a shock to him. He was not even 2 then. So they took him in the bathroom and he helped shave her head and that kind of stuff. But those are the things I don't think people really think about. Those are the moments that are just very shocking and very hard when you watch your child walk out and her hair is all gone.
Welcome to Creepalachia. I have a longtime friend in the studio. We may talk weddings today. I don't know where this is going to go, but I do know I'm very grateful to have Jessica Basham here today. Thank you for being here. This is going to be an emotional conversation, but one I'm very appreciative that you're willing to share. And it involves how cancer has affected you in your life with your family.
Yes.
So thank you.
My pleasure.
So give me a little backstory on you so people know where you grew up and all that good stuff.
Originally, I am from the Huntington area, Sarita Canova. Grew up there until mid-teenage years, and then I actually was in the foster system, and that's how I ended up in the Beckley area. I was in a group home, and then ultimately was in the hospital, and the doctor, who was my attending physician, took an interest in me, and I started hanging out with her and her family, and I call them mom and dad now. So they have been in my life since I was 16 years old and were a huge turning point in the person that I turned out to be today.
I didn't know you was in the foster system.
I was.
Well, that's inspiring because you're like an entrepreneur and you've done all these things, started like 28 businesses. I don't know what all you've done.
Yeah.
But we met when I was filming weddings.
Yes.
And you were coordinating weddings, which you don't do anymore, correct?
Right. I actually retired my event planning business after 20 years last January to run a foundation that I've started in honor of my daughter.
Yeah. And your daughter's name was?
Schuylar.
Schuylar. It's a beautiful name. All right. So you've been around here essentially most of your life, all your life?
Since I was a teenager.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
When did you decide to start a business? I'm curious about that.
So I started my event planning business when my twins were little. I was in the retail business for years, and when my husband and I had twins, it was going to cost everything I was making to put these kids in daycare, and I wasn't going to pay somebody else to raise my children. So I became a stay-at-home mom. I am a people person, though. So after 2 years with little ones at home, I had to get out of the house, and I've always liked planning parties and that kind of stuff. So helped a friend plan her daughter's wedding, and it just kind of took off from there. And over the next 20 years, I owned a full service event planning business.
Where did you keep all the rentals? What do you do with all this stuff? That's my main question is I'm like, you got all these chairs and all these tables. Like, where does this stuff go?
Well, I actually contracted out tables and chairs and stuff through a friend of mine who owned that kind of stuff. So he kept that stuff stored. But I did own a lot of my own stuff, chair covers, decorations, all of that. I had an office building in Bluefield at one point, and so we used the upstairs for that. When I decided to move out of there, I moved it in and took over my husband's garage for probably the next 10 years. Now it's in storage buildings and all of that kind of stuff because I'm actually in the process of going through everything and selling all of that stuff now.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations, I guess. I don't know. It seems like that'd be a big weight off your mind to just get this stuff out of my life. But at the same time, it's so cool that you were able to, make a living for 2 decades doing something you love to do.
Yeah, it's bittersweet not having the business anymore. I still dabble a little bit for family and friends. I feel like I've been busier the last 2 years than I was the 5 years prior to that because everybody in my life decided to get married now. But so it's bittersweet. I still do it a little bit, but
Yeah.
It's nice to move on to a different chapter of life too.
I know for me, everyone would call me and be like, hey, you love what you do. Will you do this for like a little cheap, you know? You ever get that kind of phone call? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I finally just had to get to the point in the beginning, like I would be like, okay.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you're like, my time is valuable. I'm spending weekends away from my family. So this is my price. If you don't want me, somebody else will.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I did. I would gladly tell people that I'm not filming their kid's birthday party. Like, I'm just not doing it. Okay. Yeah. And then they'll be, you know, they may get upset with me. I don't know. But eventually people stop asking if you say no enough.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, so tell me about being a mom.
So I actually became a mom to Schuylar at a very, very young age. I had her just a few months after I turned 18. So I was actually a teen pregnant mom in the foster system.
What was that like?
It's hard. It was really, really hard. And what a lot of people don't know is that when Schuylar was 2, I had another daughter. And the way I grew up and already having, you know, one little one and having a hard time doing that by myself, I opted for adoption. And my doctor, who became my foster mom, who is just my mom now, decided that they thought that was definitely the right move for me, but didn't want a child that was a part of me to get us outside of our family. So they actually adopted her.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, you know, she calls me Sissy, but I've watched her grow up. I've been a part of her life. Her and Schuylar have always known since they were old enough that they were sisters. My twins know that that's their sister. Her kids now call me Ginga and look at me as a grandma. So it was a hard time growing up, but it turned into a beautiful story. And I don't know where I would be without my parents today.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, and then you have the twins. So
yeah.
Any other kids?
No,
okay,
just
gotcha.
the twins, because they were born when the girls were 12 and 14.
Gotcha.
So,
and Schuylar was 14.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So where do you want to start with Schuylar? And again, people, it's going to be sad, but we're going to, you know, it's important we talk about these things and remember Schuylar, because I never, you know, got to meet her, but I'm excited to hear about her. And what was she like growing up?
She's always been a bright light. Like I said, I was a teen mom, so things were not always perfect between her and I. We had a lot of struggles for a long time. But when she had her own child, then I think she realized, you know, how hard it would have been to be a teen mom and to be single and stuff like that. So we've always had a good relationship, but we weren't super, super close.
Mm-hmm.
But we became really, really close in about a 3-year span there. And she's just a blessing. She lit up every room she went into. She loved people. She had the biggest heart. 3 months after she graduated, or 3 weeks after she graduated from college, she went on a 11-month mission trip called the World Race. And so she was in 11 countries over those 11 months, a month in each country. And they did everything. She had a huge passion to stop trafficking. And so she went into brothels and prayed with girls that she knew were forced into that lifestyle.
Wow.
So she gave up her life for a year to just travel to 11 countries in Central and South America to spread the word about Jesus and, you know, to try to help people change their lives and stuff like that. But the biggest thing on that trip was, I think she really found herself. She struggled for a long time with just a lot of different things, self-esteem. And everybody was always like, why do you have such self-esteem issues? You're beautiful. You're smart. You can do anything you want to, but you don't know what kind of demons people are battling on the inside. And so, but that trip, she really, really found herself and realized who she was and what her worth was. And she just wanted to love people right where they were.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what they look like, no matter what color they were, no matter what their religion was. Her motto was love like crazy. Love people right where they are.
What year was that trip?
Oh, goodness. That's been 11 years ago.
11 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So could you tell she changed when she got back from that, or?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. She was just more positive. She was in her own skin. She knew she knew who she was, and nobody could take that away from her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, if she thought somebody wasn't doing something right, one of her friends, she called them out. She didn't care if it hurt their feelings. She wanted to be a true friend and love people.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So when were you aware that something was wrong with her health? What was the early signs of something going on?
Well, she lived in Georgia, so she wasn't here. So after she finished the world race, she moved to Nashville for a while and worked for a nonprofit down there, went back to Georgia, worked for the nonprofit that she went on the race with, and met her husband through that.
Mm-hmm.
He had also done the world race at a different time. So she ended up getting married. And 1 year, almost exactly a year after she got married, they had their son, Vander. When Vander was about 10 months old, she called me and told me that she thought she had a UTI, and ultimately ended up going to the doctor, and they said, no, you don't have a UTI. Let's do an exam. And they did an exam and found a spot on her cervix. And she said, they don't know what it is, but they think that they need to do a biopsy. It could possibly be cancer. And so we had lots of questions. I mean, Vander was only 10 months old. I was like, so did they miss this like during your pregnancy, or, what, how did they not know this? Because she was stage 2 cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But they said no, that when she went back for her exam after having the baby, that they would have seen it if it was there. So it was just a aggressive cancer.
Yeah. Stage 2. So kind of, can you walk through the stages of cervix cancer?
I don't really know a whole lot about that. From what I understand is it's all based on the size of the cancer, how fast they think it's growing, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we just, at that point, they scheduled a biopsy and we just had to wait. So in March of that year, and this was March of 2021 or 2019. No, wait, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was COVID year.
Yes.
So you was going through all that too.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah. So she had that biopsy, and then we just had to wait for results.
Oh, how long was that?
About almost a week, which is doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a gut-wrenching amount of time, especially when it's your kid and you're waiting to know what that result is.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell she was nervous?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but still, still positive. And I even told her a couple different times, I wish I could take this. I wish I could take your place, And she said, I don't want you to take my place, Mama. She said, I'm younger and stronger and I can fight it better.
So she's going in wide open, ready to beat this thing.
Yeah.
So it comes back. Did she kind of develop a plan, or did she get with the doctor and they kind of say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do? Like, what were the next steps?
Yeah. So it came back positive, of course. And And so they sat down, and of course I'm here, I can't be right there. But she would call after all the doctor's appointments and let us know. So they had a game plan, and cervical cancer typically is pretty easy to beat. So they were going to do chemo, and they were going to do internal and external radiation. So she did the chemo. It's such a blur. I can't remember how many rounds or anything like that, but they did chemo first, and she didn't actually lose her hair with that chemo. And then she had external radiation where they kind of they put some tattoos, and they do outside radiation in a machine. The hardest part for her was internal radiation, because they actually take a device and they go up inside you and blast radiation. I think she had 5 or 6 treatments of that. And radiation's a lot harder on your body than what chemo is. So she had a lot of things that developed because of that were really, really hard
symptoms
to watch her go through. Yeah. And knowing that she was going to have radiation, that and the area they were having to do that, she would not be able to have kids on her own.
Sure.
After that. So prior to all of that, they actually did an egg retrieval and froze eggs, and were going to plan to use those for a surrogate to be able to have at least one more kid, maybe more in the future.
Okay. So everybody's trying to stay upbeat. I'm sure you're terrified. What were you thinking at the time? Were you trying to kind of like hide how much you were freaking out? Because I could only imagine, how that would feel for me.
Yeah.
So how did you go about doing that?
In front of her, I was very positive. And when I was alone is when I would be emotional and have those hard times. And again, knowing, what we knew, I still had faith that like we were going to beat this thing. And especially when, I'm a Christian, and when you have that kind of faith, you want to think your kid is the one who is going to be healed. And so I just clung to that, but just tried to stay as positive as I could for her going through everything. And I went and spent as much time there as I could. I was working at the time, and so I would do what I could to be there as much as I could possibly be.
So were you doing weddings?
I was still doing weddings, but I also
was it with Chick-fil-A?
Well, not at that time.
Okay,
that I had already left Chick-fil-A, but
Gotcha.
I was back in the mortgage business
Gotcha.
for a little while.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Hustling. But at the same time, you're sitting there, like, let's just say you're doing someone's wedding and they're so upset because the flowers are not the perfect shade of pink, and you're like, I just want to throw you over the banister. This is not a problem.
Oh, yeah.
I
have a completely different outlook on life. I've always been grateful because of my childhood and my past. But when you go through something like this, it puts a whole new perspective on things. And I have lost friends. I have chosen to remove people from my life. And I'm completely okay with that, because in the grand scheme of things, people have no idea how short life is and what's really, really important.
Oh, yeah. The perspective I imagine you get from it. And, even just getting older, you're like, oh, I'm more sore than I used to be. Oh, I'm not going to be here that long. Just little stuff like that. But then something like this comes and rocks your whole foundation. Yeah. I imagine it makes you question a lot of things.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful, though, having your faith, and the thing that comes with that is a really good community to lean on, I'm sure.
Yes.
So how did people respond to you during this time? Were they kind of like trying to not make you feel like they were pitying you? Or is it weird when people come up and are like, oh, Jessica, how you doing?
Not during the fight.
Right.
People, I have a great family. I have a great community of friends, and they were just there when I needed them. And that was, it's great to have people like that you can lean on. So during the battle, it's not hard. It's after you lose a battle that those situations get hard.
Gotcha. Which we'll walk into. So is there a certain time? So you do the initial treatments. Was there a test that came back that you knew like, oh, it didn't work, or kind of how did it progress?
No, actually it was pretty traumatizing. So the cervical cancer, they actually almost got, like, we were really close, and we were pretty sure she was going to beat it. Got done with everything. 3 months later, you have a scan. When she had that scan, it had actually metastasized to her liver, which is super uncommon for cervical cancer. So I think they said at one point it's kind of like whack-a-mole. Don't know how to fight it, so you just kind of have to throw everything that you can at it. So she started new chemo. This time she would lose her hair, which is a whole different type of devastation. I remember that she got her hair cut really short at first, kind of in a pixie cut. And then we actually met her and Joe in Withville, and we got our grandson, and they went to Georgia for some treatment and some stuff for a few days. And then they came back to our house. And when we met them for dinner, her hair still just looked fine. And just within a few days of them traveling and coming home, when they got back to our house, we were all in the living room. Me and her, and I think Vander and some of us were sitting on the couch, and my husband and my twins were sitting on, we have this 8-foot beanbag chair, and they were sitting there, and she had on a beanie. And Vander hadn't seen her and got up on her lap and stuff and was playing around with her. And he pulled that beanie off.
Mm.
And she had patches that were just completely gone. And I just remember the look on my boys' faces, seeing their sister like that. You could just tell they were shocked, and especially that it had happened that fast. So I actually went to Harrisonburg with them back to Joe's families where they were living at the time to do some Christmas stuff. And that evening, when we got back to Harrisonburg, we had a stylist come, and she actually shaved her head that night. She didn't want anybody in there except for Joe, and they had Vander in there because they didn't want it to be a shock to him. He was not even 2 then. So they took him in the bathroom, and he helped shave her head and that kind of stuff. But those are the things I don't think people really think about. Those are the moments that are just very shocking and very hard when you watch your child walk out and her hair is all gone.
Yeah. Well, it's a visible interpretation of what's going on. It's like, oh, daggone, this is real.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So how was she still like, I'm going to beat this thing, I don't care if it's in my liver, or could you tell she was kind of like,
No, she was still fighting. And, and even with her hair, she at first was like, her biggest thing was, it wasn't that her hair was gone. Mm-hmm. It was that now when I go out in public, people are going to know I'm sick. Oh. I haven't looked sick up until this very moment. And now people are going to know I'm sick. People are going to pity me. And I don't want anybody to pity me.
Yeah. Was
her whole attitude about it. And we were just like, you know what? You have a beautiful shaped head.
Yeah.
And that's how we always kind of tried to look at things. It could be worse. Like you could have knots on your head and stuff, but you have a beautiful head.
Oh, some people look like dinosaurs. Like, I mean, so that's a positive way to look at it. But shoo, man, that's still, it's and I imagine she's a strong, independent woman like you. So for something like that to happen, to be like, no, I'm not, it's not going to win. I don't want people to look at me and think that it's going to beat me. I could imagine how that would make someone feel. Okay, so we go through the next round of treatments. Does she get more symptomatic? Does she start losing, does she start getting lethargic or anything like that? Or
no, not yet. The biggest thing was weight loss. That's a huge thing that comes along with cancer. You don't really have that much of an appetite and different things like that. So she goes through 3 rounds of chemo, and when they finish those 3 rounds and they do her scan, at the beginning, she had 3 tumors on her liver. And when they do the scan 3 months after, she is down to like a half a tumor. So 2 are gone. 1 is like half the size. So we got really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
And said, okay, let's do 3 more rounds of chemo. And then they were going to do surgery to get anything else that was left because the liver regenerates. So here we go. 3 more rounds of chemo. Do a scan after those 3 rounds. And she had 5 tumors. So the cancer had grown through the chemo. So at that point, before anybody even tells us, and she knew then, it was going to take a miracle. She knew to the point that everybody had gone to bed and it was just her and I. And she said, Mama, we got to have a conversation. I was like, sure. What do you want to talk about? And she said, it's going to be a hard one. And I was like, we're not doing this. Nope. I don't want to talk about it. We are not doing this. And she was like, no, we are doing this. And she started out telling me that night, I don't know if it will be this year or 10 years from now, but cancer is going to take me. You are going to outlive me. And I was like, I'm not having this conversation. And she said, we have to have this conversation. She said, there's things I need to talk about. And so in a nutshell, that night, she told me exactly what she expected of my life. She said, I get my looks from you. I get my personality from you. I get my love and compassion for people from you. And if when I'm gone, you lay down, I don't live on. You have to get up so that I can live on. Mm-hmm. She told me that night what she expected of me with her son, what she expected of me with her husband, what she expected of me with her siblings. So people ask me all the time, how do you still have faith? How do you get up every morning when you've gone through something like this with your kid? And at the end of the day, the biggest reason is because that's what she told me to do. That's what she told me she expected of me. And I don't want to disappoint her.
Yeah. Well, how hard, but what was that conversation? What did that feel like to you? Was it, I want to say what a beautiful conversation,
yes.
But at the same time, how bittersweet. I don't know. It's just awful.
That's exactly how I explain that conversation to people. I do retreats now for moms who have lost children. I actually have one in Princeton that starts tomorrow evening. Mm-hmm. And last year when we had it, everybody kind of, we have a morning where everybody goes around and they talk about their kids and they tell their stories. And everybody told their story before me. And by the time it got to me, I was crying and I was like, I don't want to tell my story. And they were like, you have to. And I was like, but I don't want to because the things I had listened to with these moms, suicide, murder, all these things that happened to their kids, as hard as it was for me to lose her, I got to have those conversations. I got to say goodbye. I got to watch her be faithful to the very end. And so, and that's exactly what I told them that morning. I said, I will tell you my story, but I feel bad because my story is a very beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly how I explain it. Because I can't imagine not being able to say bye. I can't imagine not knowing what her wishes were. You know, her 3 biggest asks were make sure my son knows who I am, make sure my husband finds love again because he's so young, and make sure people remember my name.
Wow. So how long after that conversation, what happened after that?
She got very sick. That was in December, and we lost her in July. So those next months, she still fought, she still battled, she still went, through treatments, but with liver cancer, it's really cervical cancer. It's just on your liver, which was hard for me to understand. She didn't have liver cancer. She had cervical cancer growing on her liver, but you still get all those effects. So it's just like somebody who would have a bad liver from drinking or something like that. Your belly swells, you get jaundiced, those kind of things. So she was in and out of the hospital, lots of pain. At one point, the last time she was in the hospital, she had to have surgery to have a drain put in, and we had to drain fluid off of her stomach every day, sometimes a couple times a day, depending on how it was. So the last time she went into the hospital, my son-in-law called me and said, we're on our way to the hospital. We're getting this drain put in and everything. And during that stay, she just was getting worse. And that was the time in the hospital that the doctors ultimately came in. They came in early that week when we were there and told us without a miracle, we were looking at, 18 months or so. And within days, they said, there's just nothing else we can do. You're looking at probably, weeks to months.
Goodness.
That was on a Tuesday. And and we were in Virginia, and she and Joe had always talked about there was a church in Georgia that she wanted to be baptized in. They had been there. This church had been in revival. They were doing baptisms where people had been healed and different things. And she's always wanted to go down there and be baptized. So, on Tuesday, we told the doctors we want to be released tomorrow. My parents were there. Wednesday morning, we loaded up and headed to Georgia. We put a mattress in the back of my Armada, and her husband and best friend and her husband's best friend, me, her, and Vander were in my vehicle. My parents were in a vehicle behind us. We stopped in Withville and picked up my husband and my kids, and we made the hardest journey of our lives from Virginia to Georgia that day. We ran late, but we made it to this church. They knew we were coming. They were waiting on us to baptize her.
So she was laying on the bed, on the mattress?
Yeah, in the back. We had all the seats laid down, and I laid back there with her, and Cody laid back there with her. And the only seat that was up was the one where my grandson was in his car seat, right there beside us. And we went to this church in Georgia, and we went in, and they carried her into the baptismal that night and baptized her. And we went back to her best friend's house. That's where she wanted to be. So we went back there, and for the next 2 weeks, family came, friends came to see her. She was just gradually getting worse. She was having a hard time walking. She eventually had to go on oxygen. She wasn't eating a lot. But she told me on think probably Friday or Saturday. She got baptized on Wednesday. On Friday or Saturday, she said, Mom, I want to go to church on Sunday. She said, but I don't want to go, just for a little while. She said, I want to go the whole time. I want to go for the praise and worship. I want to go for the preaching and all of that. That's okay. She had to go in a wheelchair. She really couldn't walk very much at that point. But when they found out we were coming, they said, why don't we baptize her again? And so I said, sis, they said, if you want to get baptized again, you can get baptized again. And she was like, yeah, that'll be good. So we went and she sat in the sanctuary and didn't have very much energy at all. But during praise and worship, she was raising hands. There was somebody who went on Facebook and actually had taken a picture of her from behind and said, I was at this church. I don't know this young lady or, didn't know anything about her until that night. And it was just so uplifting for me to watch her not even hardly be able to move her head in this wheelchair. But she was, had her hands lifted and was praising Jesus. And so got baptized again that night. And I went into the baptismal with her that night and got baptized too. But they had to carry her in. And, while she was in there, the pastor was kind of, talking and kind of telling her story again and stuff like that. And she took the microphone from him, and part of it you could understand, part of it you couldn't because she was so weak, but she was wanting to tell her own story.
Oh.
And they baptized her. And when she came up out of the water, she stood straight up on her own with her hands raised up and walked to the end of the baptismal. And then she walked out on her own accord.
Wow.
And there were people, the pastors were and so they did an altar call right then. And there were dozens of people who were saved in that church that night.
Hmm.
And that's what she loved. She loved to spread the gospel to other people. And
even when she can barely move, she did.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Phew. I can't imagine what that's like for you to go through. Like, are you just, does it not feel real in a way? Or you're just like, you know what I mean? It's just like, that's my kid.
Yeah.
And we're just going through this thing, whether we want to or not.
Right.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you go through those moments. There are moments that it feels very real. And then there are moments that it's just like you wake up in the morning, you're like, did I dream it? And then you go in and you see her in a hospital bed.
Oh,
but you sit in the bed with her and, her stomach was so painful and stuff. It just finally came to the point one night you had to change the bandage and you had to drain that and everything. And we're in there and we're trying to do it. And the whole time she is fighting us because she's just hurting. And I just looked at Joe and I said, we're not doing this. Like I'm not doing this. I'm not holding her down and having her be in pain while we're trying to do this. And we called hospice in and got her some pain medicine. And so she slept a lot over the next few days. She did, they say everybody has a rally day, and she definitely did. There was one day she woke up and she wanted to listen to country music because music was her thing. Mm-hmm. And she wanted a strawberry fresher from Starbucks. And so we did all of that, and she went to sleep that night. And the next morning, everybody had gone home. We thought maybe she was doing better because she rallied, because we tried everything. We did a stem cell transplant on her earlier that week. If you've never watched it, you should watch. It's called Weed the People. It's a documentary on Netflix about a woman who uses cannabis and stuff. And there were pediatric patients we got on the phone with her and had a Zoom call with her, and she made stuff and sent it to us. And so we tried the cannabis. I know a lot of people probably don't believe in that kind of stuff, but when you're fighting for your kid's life, you will try anything.
Oh yeah. I've talked to many people that went through treatments and said it was a lifesaver. Like it helped them be able to eat. It helped them, all kinds of.
So we tried everything, and she rallied that day, and everybody, we were like, okay, maybe something's working, and so my husband and my twins actually left to come home. We did fireworks. We did a fireworks stand that year to raise money for medical bills.
Wow.
And 2 days after it started is when I got the phone call that I needed to go to Georgia. So my kids, and some friends to Virginia, helped run that fireworks stand. But it was the day that we were going to have to turn everything in. And so since things were looking okay, my husband and my twins came home to take care of all of that. And I got a phone call from them just a couple hours before they got home, probably within an hour of getting home to pick our dog up. Josh called and said they came in the kennel this morning and found Minor dead in the kennel. So I'm dealing with my husband and my kids and me being very upset that, our dog, but then here I'm down here with my child. And literally within the next few hours, I had to call and tell them that Schuylar had passed. So everybody had, almost everybody had gone home. Me, her husband, and one of my sisters was there with me. But when we woke up that morning and we went in, you could just tell something was different. Her breathing was a lot shallower. And it's crazy. You have conversations. The month before she passed, I had bought tickets to take her to this country music festival at Myrtle Beach. Like I said, music concerts, that was our thing. Jason Aldean was our favorite. And she wanted to go on that trip. That was a very hard trip too, but she was in a wheelchair the whole time, but she wanted to go. So we picked and choose which concerts we wanted to go to. And the last night, it was just me and her at the concert. It was Jason Aldean. And on our way home from that trip, she was laying in my back seat and she was like, I had a really good time this week, Mama. I'm glad, I said, are you glad we came? She said, yes. She said, it was hard, but I'm glad we came. She said, I'm just so tired. And I said, I know you are, but just hold on. We've got a few more things we want to try, because we were going to try the stem cell and we were going to try the cannabis. So I kept asking her, just hold on. Just wait. Just give it a look. Let's try these last things. Let's throw everything at it. So the morning of, when I went in and I could tell her breathing was different, I just kind of sat down and held her hand and I just said, I know you're tired. And if you don't want to fight anymore, I've got this side. I've got Joe. I've got Vander. If you're done, be done. And Joe came in a little while later. And I told him the same thing. I said, you and I have kept asking her to hold on until we tried these things. And now we've tried everything. And I think she's ready. And I've told her that it's okay. But I think that she needs to hear it from you too. And he sat down on the side of the bed and held her hand. And he told her the same thing. He said, if you're tired, we've got this. And she was gone in 15 minutes.
Oh, man. It gives me chills. It's so incredible. I'm so sorry. I've just did a interview with hospice and they were talking about like literally when you tell them it's okay, they're going to leave. Like, and I was just, it's so, that's the thing that, and you probably know, we've done religion shows that I'm on the agnostic side, but that's the thing where I know there's something. I know that life is beautiful and it's a gift. And I know that this stuff isn't a coincidence.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh man. So you were there when she took her last breath?
I was laying in the bed with her, holding her in my arms. I held her in my arms when she came into this world, and I held her in my arms when she left this world.
What year was that?
July 5th, 2022.
My goodness. So this happens. Where did you like, what would you have advice to say to people on how do you plan for something like this? Like, what do you do next? Who helps you along through that? Because then you got to think like, well, we got to get together the arrangements now, and you're an event planner, but you don't want to do nothing like this. Like, what do you do?
Well, I did want to do it.
Did you?
Because my daughter was very different. A lot of people don't know she was an event planner in Georgia. She started working with me as a teenager and loved it. And she had her own event planning business in Georgia. And so actually, a few months prior, she said, I want to have a pre-funeral. I said, what? She said, I want to have a pre-funeral. She said, I want to have a celebration, and I just want to sit, and I want to have Mexican food, and I want to have mimosas, and I want people to play cornhole and yard games, and I want to sit around and I want to watch my people be together and have a good time.
Oh.
And I said, that's weird, but okay.
I mean, whatever you want.
Of course, my child asking me to plan the weirdest event I've ever planned. Unfortunately, she took such a quick turn and things happened so fast. We didn't get to do that.
Oh.
But she knew what she wanted. You know, she wanted to be cremated. So that's what we did. We took a little bit of time just to process it ourselves. But a few weeks later, we had a celebration of life at a venue down there where she had done some events and stuff. And we had Mexican food, and we had mimosas, and we had mimosas made with our favorite kind of popsicles. And we had yard games, and we did have friends who got up and talked. I wrote a song for her wedding day. And so we played that song again at her service. But we had that service in Georgia, and, you know, she's from West Virginia, and we had I wish we'd have done a guest book. We didn't, but there were well over 300 people at this event, and we had tons of people who could not travel. So, you know, I tell people all the time, I really think that if we had another event here, we probably would have had just as many people, but my heart couldn't handle a second service. So we just had to do the celebration down there. But we did, you know, we did everything that she wanted, and I did. I planned it. I knew what she wanted. Joe asked me to plan it, right down to the tablecloths being her favorite color and all.
What's her favorite color?
Her favorite color is green, dark
nice.
green, just like your shirt.
Well, perfect.
Yeah.
Like a sage? Is that the word? I don't know the word, but hunter green.
Hunter green.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a good color.
So it was a very hard day, but it was a very, very good day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of how it should be. Like we're trained to think like, all wear black, everybody go to the funeral home. But you know, I always remember like going to funerals with my grandpa. He'd be the first one in there making people laugh every time. And I'm just thinking like, you know, we should be remembering the good moments, you know, we should be doing that. And
I don't want a traditional funeral. And I've been saying that for years, even before we had to deal with this with her. I've said that for years. We went to a funeral where a friend of ours had passed away, and he had a wife and 2 young kids, and we went just to be there for her. So I sat in this funeral home during the wake. And, you know, and somebody would come in and she would get upset, and then she would compose herself, and then somebody else would come in and she would get upset. And I told my husband that night, I was like, we're not doing this. My people aren't going through this emotional roller coaster all night long. I'm a huge Jimmy Buffett fan. So when I go, I want a big luau, grass skirts.
Margaritaville neon.
Yes. Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense. I mean, I love it. Obviously you wish you weren't there, but what a way to remember her.
Yeah.
And her spirit. So when did you start to form your effort now, your retreat?
Not until we got about a year into it. You talked earlier about how do you handle the way people react to you. And I think that's when I realized that I needed a community of other moms who knew exactly how I feel, because people didn't want to say her name. People didn't want to talk about her. People wouldn't say the word cancer in front of me. I had friends who, I had one friend in particular who was battling cancer and didn't tell me. I heard from somebody else because she didn't want to put that on me because of what I had been through.
Oh.
And so I've had to have lots of conversation with my people, my family, my friends, say, listen, it bothers me more when you act like she didn't live. It bothers me more when you don't say her name, when you don't talk about her, because number one, she wanted to be remembered. She said, I was one of her top 3. I want people to remember my name. I want people to remember me. So if your family and your friends aren't saying her name, so I would get really frustrated about that. And I finally just told them, they were like, we don't want to make you upset. We don't want to make you cry. Well, guess what? I might cry, but I might not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a place now that I still cry most days. Most of the time it's in private after everybody's gone to bed or when I'm driving in my car. But a lot of times when people say her name and they talk about her, I smile now.
Yeah.
Because she lived, because she was a great person, because I'm thankful that I got 31 years. Some people don't get that.
Yeah.
So, but through that, my friends and my family have become better at that. And I tell all of them, you all are great, but 75% of the time I still feel really, really alone because child loss is different. Everybody has grief. It's a different type of grief. And if you haven't experienced it, you don't know what to say a lot of times. You don't know how to handle it. So actually the way that I came about this idea with the retreat, my son-in-law had gone to a widow retreat in Georgia, and it was like a light bulb. He was around other men who had lost their wives, who still had young kids at home. And he really got a lot out of that. And so people were like, you should find a mom's retreat like that. And so I started looking, and there were some out there, but not anything that really jumped out at me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had a friend who sent me a message and said, hey, I have a friend who lost her son about the same time as you lost your daughter. And, she is still struggling. She's hardly, she really don't hardly get out of bed. And like, I was just, what kind of advice do you have for me? And I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, I'm new to this too. And she said, well, I've just watched you. I've watched your story. I've watched you carry yourself with such faith and grace that I thought you might have some advice. I said, honestly, the only thing I can tell you is just be there. You're not going to be able to fix it. You're not going to have the right words. Just let her know that you will be there if she needs to scream, if she needs to cry, if she needs to sit in silence. Just be there. And a couple weeks later, it was like God sat me up in my bed at 3 a.m. and said, you're an event planner. You can plan your own event. And 6 months later, I had my first Broken to Beautiful retreat that is specifically for moms who have lost children after birth, after they've been born.
Mm-hmm.
People ask us about miscarriage and different things like that. And there's a great need for that. I don't feel like I'm the right person for that type of retreat. So I always have to clarify, like, ours are for people who have had living children.
So Broken to Beautiful. How can someone get involved that's listening? And we're not done talking about cancer yet. We'll get into part 2, which you're going through right now. But how can someone get involved with the efforts?
So our foundation is the Schuylar Barnes Foundation. Her name is spelled a little different. It's Schuylar. But our website is theschuylarbarnesfoundation.org. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok now. Against my better judgment.
You'd be good at it.
But,
yeah.
well, I'm there, and I had friends talk me into going there because of these retreats. And so I've been there since May. I have almost 10,000 followers. I've talked to thousands of moms. This retreat this weekend, I have 22 moms coming, and over half of them are from TikTok. They're coming from Florida and Missouri and Mississippi and right here to West Virginia, so that we can bond and love on each other.
Yeah. And what a legacy, carrying it on. You're helping people heal. And, I imagine Schuylar be super hyped about that. So what an inspiring journey. But cancer freaking struck again in your family. And you're going through that right now. So kind of walk me through what's going on currently.
So my biological mom, who I have had a great relationship with now, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 5 months after we lost Schuylar.
Daggone it.
Yeah. And it brought up a lot because, Schuylar looked like me, but she had blonde hair, blue-green eyes. My mom has blonde hair and green eyes. She looked a lot like my mom. So it really was like watching an older version of Schuylar go through this all over again. And I was one of her primary caregivers.
Did you just freaking scream that, like, when you heard that 5 months after? What did you do?
Yeah, your gut just sinks, especially with pancreatic cancer, because as of right now, there's no cure for it. Really, when you start fighting pancreatic cancer, you are fighting a battle that you ultimately know you are going to lose. The treatments that you do are just to prolong as long as you can.
So it's chemo, radiation, the whole thing? Or?
No radiation, just chemo.
Okay.
Yeah. But, but chemo like once a week, like you go for 3 weeks and then you have a week off, and then you go for 3 weeks and then you have a week off. So, and normally it is a 3 to 6 month prognosis is what they give you. We never got a prognosis with Mom. She did not want a prognosis. She said, I don't want to know. You're not to tell my children. At first she wasn't going to take any treatment. She had watched what Schuylar had gone through, and she said, I'm not doing that. And then for some reason she decided that she was going to fight. And, I probably should have told you, and it's just been so crazy, but my mom lost her battle June 28th.
I didn't know that.
But a cancer that should have taken her very quickly, she fought for 28 months. So there's also a blessing in that.
Yeah. That's the thing, is because you hear so many different stories. You hear people who got like 3 to 6 months and they beat it. You hear people that are, oh, this ain't going to be no problem. Kind of like Schuylar's.
Right.
You hear stage 2 and you're like, oh, you caught it early.
Right.
I've never realized that, like, no, it don't really work like that, because every cancer is different, on how fast it grows. And oh, man.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it is. That's what I say all the time. I'm like, you don't know what the purpose is, for anything, but you have a 31-year-old, extremely healthy person who gets a cancer that should be easily beaten. And she's 15 months from diagnosis to death. And then you have a 70-year-old, not so healthy woman who gets a terminal diagnosis who is 28 months from diagnosis to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I questioned a lot of those things. The one thing that I think, as I said, I was in the foster system. My mom and I did not have a great relationship. There were several years that we didn't even talk. Mm-hmm. And then I learned things about her life that made me realize that she had gone through a lot, and I chose forgiveness. And in the last 28 months, I spent more time with my mom one-on-one than I probably had the whole 50 years prior.
Did you learn anything new?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've learned that you never know, even if it's your mom, even if it's your relatives, you never know what somebody went through. You never know what causes their circumstances. I learned a lot of things that make me feel really bad for things that my mom went through as a child that I never knew about. And now I feel bad for some of the feelings that I had against her. I've learned that I'm not a big fan of my grandma, her mom, because of things that she let go on.
Sure.
That ultimately affected my life. It's a cycle.
Oh, yes. But we can break it. And that's kind of what you did. Like, give yourself some credit. You were dealt some crappy cards.
Yeah.
And you've been continuously dealt those cards. And you're just like, you know what? I'm going to press on, which I'm sure it's hard. But I feel that way, like with my dad. I just sit around and think sometimes, because I hadn't started building the business until after we kind of fell out. That's pretty much what happened. And I sit around and think sometimes, like, does he ever think I wonder what JD's doing? Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of public now. I'm just thinking, does he ever just say, you know what? That was pretty good what he did, Right. But then I got to just push that away. No, things have happened and I've went through anger, went through the whole cycle, and, he was going through whatever. I don't have to like him for it. I don't have to love him for it, but I can wish him well now.
Sure.
And I can live my life and just not carry on that cycle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm big on forgiveness now too, because ultimately not forgiving somebody only hurts you.
Yeah.
It only brings you down. It only causes you strife. When somebody hurts you, especially if they don't act like they care that they hurt you, it's not hurting you. It's not hurting them that you're mad or haven't forgiven them.
Sure.
So I'm really big on forgiveness and just understanding. And that's what I used to say all the time. You just get to a point where you accept people for who they are, even the disappointing parts of them.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it's forgiveness, but it also is but this wall that I've just put up to protect my kid.
Sure.
Is never going to be broken.
Sure.
But I'll forgive you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But you ain't getting back in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just, I just imagine which I don't think we'd never have the relation. I don't know much about him really. We'd never have the relationship to talk about emotions. I talk about that with, thousands of people and just hey, here it is.
Yeah.
Think what you want. It's kind of like therapy for me.
Yeah.
To be able to say, oh, people are actually listening,
Yeah. And
even when my dad wouldn't, but I think it's just one of those things you got to just get over.
Yeah. Well, and as your longtime friend, what I would tell you is the only person that's missing out on you is your dad.
There we go. Hey,
because you're a good human. And if he's choosing to miss out on that, then I feel bad for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, he didn't know I was going to start a podcast and, talk about my life. I mean, could you imagine how mortifying that would be? Someone just
might have done things different.
I know. Yeah. It's like, hey, but at the same time, like, it is what it is. But just seeing at the same time, I was so blessed. Like, my grandparents are the best people. My mom is the best mom you could ask for. I mean, things fell in line and I made good decisions and met my smoking hot wife, and we've done the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very blessed, and a lot of people aren't. And got to remember that too, is like, that's what really struck me of you saying, like, yeah, it was a hard conversation, but what a beautiful conversation I got to have, because a lot of people didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
So what a positive outlook.
Yeah. And I am very blessed. I've been through a lot of hard things. I used to say all the time, like, when am I going to catch a break? I feel like I have been fighting a brick wall since the day I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But then you learn to take control of your own life. You don't let other people or the negative things take control of you. And I feel the same way about that with the sickness with Schuylar and my mom. Like, I can't let it take control of me. My big thing now, like my big motto, is be a warrior, use your pain for purpose.
Heck yeah.
Because your story, everybody has a story, no matter how small or how big, everybody has a story. And you need to tell it because it can help somebody else.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, that's what you're doing. And I'm grateful you're doing it. And I know it's going to continue to grow, because that's just what stuff does when you work on it. Stuff just grows, and then eventually you're like, well, I'll do something else, So, but so how did you kind of structure this retreat? Did you say, like, well, we're going to go to Myrtle Beach for 3 days, or like,
well,
how'd you decide you wanted to do it?
As of right now, I just wanted to do it local, because honestly, when I sat down and I started thinking about doing this, I started making a list of people right here in my own community, people that I personally knew who had lost children, and including myself, it was over 20.
Jeez.
That I personally, some of them, it has been years. Some of them, some of my friends, it's been friends that I walked through these deaths with them, not knowing that I would be there one day. And so I was like, we got to do it local, so found a venue here locally that a friend of mine owns, but I wanted it to be a relaxing. So it's Broken to Beautiful, a retreat for moms who have lost children. But our taglines are relate, release, relax, rejuvenate, the 4 R's. So we come in on a Thursday evening and we have a meet and greet pizza party, and we do a lantern release on the water in honor of our kids. So we're relating with each other and getting to know each other. On Friday, that is our release day. First thing that morning, we sit down and we tell our stories and we talk about our kids and we say their names. The rest of that day, we do crafts and we have a speaker and that kind of stuff. Saturday is our relaxed day. So we have massage therapists that come in and donate their time, and nail techs that come in and donate their time to just pamper these moms. And then that night we have s'mores, one of my favorite things, out by the fire pit. And then on Sunday we eat breakfast together, and hopefully we go back out into the world being rejuvenated. The whole concept for me was like, you don't come to my retreat every year. This isn't something, like a ladies' conference where you go every year and you have different speakers and stuff like that. I wanted this to be about building true friendships with other moms who know how you feel. I wanted to build friendships with these ladies that if I wake up and I'm sad at 3 a.m., I can pick up the phone and I can call one of them. I wanted to do real life with them. So we started a support group, and we get together and we go out to dinner, or we go bowling, or like we do things that real friends do together. We do real life with each other. All the moms last year were from this area. There were only 9 of us. It was very small. We put it out there to start doing more retreats. We weren't really getting a lot of people. So I had some friends that was like, you should go to TikTok. So I went to TikTok. Now this retreat is over 20 moms. It's still here in West Virginia, but we have moms from all over the country that are coming in, and it's the same setup. My best friend that I've been best friends with for 52 years, the only constant in my life, comes and cooks breakfast and cooks dinner. We had, local businesses are donating some lunches and different things like that. But we're growing.
Yeah, no.
Because of TikTok, we now have secured a venue in Georgia, in Gainesville, where my daughter lived. And in March, we will host a Broken to Beautiful retreat in the state of Georgia, and looking at possibly going to Tennessee and Kentucky in 2026.
Of course you are.
As well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And starting support groups. So I'm getting moms in other areas who want to do support groups like ours. And we're going to do Zoom calls and we're going to train them. And so we are launching a national campaign for any mom in any state, anywhere. Start one of our Broken to Beautiful support groups. We'll train you. We'll support you. And so we just want moms all over the country. We can't go everywhere. We'll probably do different states each year, but if God brings us a team, then we'll run with it. But that's our plan right now, is just to reach as many moms as we can. Like I said, I probably have gotten 10,000 messages since May from moms. So it is very, very, very needed.
Oh, yes. And perspective, people, anyone listening that is lucky enough that cancer hasn't struck your family, which with my family, it hasn't really struck the nucleus. It's, it's been around. But one thing I've noticed is I have, like, say, for instance, we know someone whose kid is going through, they literally live in Cleveland right now, living for a year. And it's not looking great. It's very sad. But one thing I've always noticed, and I don't know if this is a thing, but kids handle things so much better than anyone else in this world. They're so strong and resilient. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so sad to us, is like, can't they just give them a shot? But literally it's just so inspiring to see how kids handle their diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And I wish it was never a thing, but I really wish that, we as adults could be that strong, and I see that in you. Like, I see you all just continuing to move forward, and it's just so, it's just one of those things. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it just seems like to me that kids handle this stuff so much better.
Yeah. Kids are definitely warriors.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really quite incredible. But all right. Well, Jessica, thank you for sharing this. One last plug. Let people know where you're at, how they can reach out to you, and all that good stuff.
I am on all the platforms: social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And it's all, most of my stuff is plugged under Jessica Basham, but it's all tagged with the Schuylar Barnes Foundation. And then we have our website. You can find everything on there. Information about the retreats. People can register for the retreats on there. You can read my story. You can read Schuylar's story. We do some other things through the foundation for foster kids and stuff like that. There's a chance we might be building the Schuylar House in Princeton at some point. But you can find everything on there. You can donate on there. We are a nonprofit, so if people want to get involved that way.
Heck yeah. Well, I will be donating. I'm very proud to know you. There ain't no wedding like a Basham wedding. We got to bring him back, Jessica. But we always had the best time. Yeah. Usually at Finn Castle.
Yeah. Well, the last one we did together was in Summersville, and it was a monsoon.
Where at?
At that bed and breakfast that was like a house, and it was the tent.
Okay.
And I had on my pink rain boots because it was pouring the rain, and I had to get fake grass.
Yeah. Do you ever, so I'm going to admit, me and Jenna have a little game, and I know some of the brides listen, and this ain't nothing against any bride that's listening, but we kind of take bets on like, all right, 5 years or more. Like, is it 5 or less or 5 or more afterwards? And we got some of them right. I was like, hey, but a majority of them are still together. So that's great.
I have a lot that are still together, but we had certain ones that we bet on, and I was normally right.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know. You always could sense like how they were around each other, and like, like, yeah, I think this one's going to be less than a year. And Jen's like, no way. And then I'm like, ding, I win.
Yes.
Where are we going to eat? You're paying.
That's right.
You know, but even still, you know, stay together, people. Let's try to work through it. But I'll miss those times. But I'm very grateful they were in my life, and I appreciate you being here.
Yep. And I'll get back into that business when you get back into that business.
Deal. Okay. Well, hey, you never know. I think it'll be a while, but and we had a good time. But you talk about stressful, like, because you had one chance to catch everything, just hit record and get it up. Which I'm sure event planning has its own set of stresses.
Yes.
Of like, well, the cupcake lady's stuck in traffic. What are we gonna do? You know, stuff like that. But for ours, it was like cameras overheating. Oh my goodness, they're about to kiss. You know, and you have to have a backup. But yeah, it was very stressful. But Unscripted Memories was a good time, and people that I think we did 88 weddings, I think. And if they have their video, you know, we did have one that asked for us to do their second wedding too, but we never got to do because we were shut down. But yeah, that's a deal. All right, deal. Everyone else out there, be sure to like this video if you haven't. Be sure to subscribe to Creepalachia if you haven't. And we are on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, be sure to leave a review. That'll really help the show be found. And we are selling hoodies, creepalachia.shop. If you want one, go ahead and snag a pre-order. And last but not least, everyone else, always remember, before I forget, Jessica, what was your mom's name?
Carol.
Carol. Rest in peace to Carol. Rest in peace to Schuylar. Was Schuylar working with you in 2016? I'm trying to think if I met her.
You have probably met her maybe at like a bridal show or something like that.
Probably so. Well, rest in peace. Very sorry for your family, but very inspiring to see where you're at now. And everyone else, always remember, above all else, long live Appalachia.